Hello, good morning. Welcome to my audio blog. It has been a while, at least 2 weeks since I have posted anything from my blog, my audio blog. I'm still trying to figure out what's the best fit for me. How many times per month do I do an audio blog? Is it once a month? Is it twice a month? And I'm still trying to figure it out because I'm just that person. I need to mess up colossally before I can actually get anything correct. So here I am today. We're going to be talking about the blog post that I made yesterday called Consequence. And for those of you who have listened to these before, I do a reading of the blog. So if you're not into reading or you don't have enough time to read or for whatever reason, you can simply listen to some of my longer form blogs via your ears instead. Like, what else would you listen with besides your ears? Anyway, you understand what I'm talking about. So let's get into it. This blog is called Consequence, and what exactly brought me here today? I've been participating in the Meet the Maker March 2023 for creators this year. This may be the first Meet the Maker that I actually complete. For those of you who might not know that what this is, yeah. Talking is hard. It's kind of this open-ended list. Usually they give you these one-word sort of prompts for the day. And as a maker, you just post something and then you talk about that. And it gives the makers and all kinds of different makers a showcase for their individual types of work. In years past, I started creating posts, but then petered out somewhere near the end of the month. Then I make some promise to myself and my followers that I will actually complete it the next year, or some such nonsense to that effect. There are about 5 more days left in March, and it actually looks like I will be able to finish it this year. Big accomplishment for me. One of the daily prompts got me thinking, and getting me thinking about anything in depth can be a good or a bad thing, depending on what the subject is. The prompt that got me thinking was decisions. This prompt stuck with me for more than the others this month. Perhaps it's because of my need to be understood as a person. Decisions that I have made in my life regarding how I exist in the world have been made for extremely specific reasons. Those decisions fit me as an individual, and they aren't necessarily for everyone. I'm not the type of person who's gonna force the way that I live on someone else, but I'm not going to apologize for how I live either. Does that make any sense? I can hear most people now saying, "Oh, big deal. Everyone makes decisions about their lives every day." Yeah, they do. But I'm the one writing this blog. I'm the one with the blog. So I'm deciding that I'm going to be writing about my decisions. And actually, part of this is reminding myself. As you all know, I'm a depressive. I take medication to make me function as a person. Even with antidepressant medication, I have a tendency to focus on the negative rather than the positive things in my life. And when things aren't going my way regarding my art business, I tend to begin picking at myself and my artwork, picking them apart using negative criticism. I won't blame people or other businesses for my perceived failures. I'll attack myself. That's pretty much how I have learn to be in the world as I attack myself. I beat myself black, blue, and bloody. This can take time for me to do, and then more time to recover from emotionally. This is, in my opinion, a huge Godzilla-sized waste of time, my precious, precious time. So I don't want to do that. Part of what I hope to achieve by writing this blog post is to help to remind myself of why I made the decisions that I've made. Those very decisions that can get me attacking myself when things aren't necessarily going my way. Remember, I have good reasons for making these decisions, but I will start picking at the negative bits because that's just how my brain works. I'm sorry if this really doesn't make any sense because it really does seem terribly, terribly childish. I'm trying to stop myself mid-tantrum and remind myself why I made a specific decision now that it's causing me to have some sort of toddler temper tantrum. So what kinds of decisions am I talking about? What makes them so special that I need to sit and write about them and now make an audio blog about them? Why can't I just be an adult and just remember them in the first place, like normal people do? Well, I think we've already established that I'm not exactly a normal person. So when it comes to the making of my art, I learned much, much, much too late that being a graphic designer, what I went to school for originally, was not a career that I was emotionally well suited for. I should say emotionally and mentally well suited for. The main reason being that I dislike making artwork that is dictated to me. In my mind, I'm the one who went to art school and I'm the one that got the degree. I put on all the hours and I worked hard and did all the studying. The client came to me to create something for them. They know I know more about art and design than they do, so they should just let me create the work without insisting on their design choices. Read some of those design choices not so great, being used instead of the much better ones that I, a trained graphic designer, have created. You can begin to see why I am not a good graphic designer. I was an utter and complete delight to work with as a graphic designer, wasn't I? Add to that a complete and total lack of any ability to even disguise for a tiny fraction of a second what my true thoughts and feelings are, and you know that I was not a good graphic designer in any way, shape, or form. My siblings have told me that they could tell what I was thinking about something from across the room. I radiate what I'm thinking. I am a bad liar. I can't hide anything. So, decisions. And I've broken this down into 3 different parts, 3 decisions, and then why I made those decisions, and then what the consequences of each one of those decisions are. The good and the bad consequences of those decisions. I'm trying to write this so I'm focusing on the good part of the consequence. So keep that in mind as we go on. So decision number 1, the artwork that I make. I make the artwork that I want to make, the way I want to make it, and when I want to make it. I use the tools, materials, and techniques, references, and influences that I want to use in the creation of my artwork. I'm guided by my own intrinsic drive to create artwork. It is the cornerstone on which a great deal of my personal and professional identity is rooted. And when I say rooted, I mean firmly cemented and rooted. You aren't going to be able to chip these things apart. They are so intertwined. They come from the same place. It is the last thing that I think about before going to sleep at night, and the first thing I think about doing when my eyes are completely opened in the morning. I know that the artwork I create is not for everyone. Not everyone likes it, nor should they. I know that my appeal as a visual artist is extremely niche. Super duper niche. I know this. This means I don't sell a tremendous amount of my artwork. Not all people will ever know that I was ever an artist or ever see anything that I ever created. So, on to the consequences of making a decision like that. My consequences of decision 1. I make an insanely pitiful amount of money as an artist. No one really knows who I am or what my artwork is about, nor do they really care, other than my niche patrons. And my niche patrons, if you are listening to this, thank you from the bottom of my crusty, broken, depressed, warped, weird, damaged little soul. You buy my art supplies for me, and by doing so, you give me life. Thank you. Looked upon in a more favorable light, one of the consequences of decision 1 is that I'm poor as hell. But I'm poor as hell on my own terms. And I don't have people telling me how, what, when, where to create my artwork. And that is priceless to me. I don't have someone dictating my own intrinsic drives. Okay. Decision number 2. Where and how I sell my artwork. I made the decision to sell my artwork only through my website and the occasional in-person event. I do sometimes make arrangements to display or sell my artwork at public venues or through small local businesses. I do this to maintain control over my creative work. I do know that social media, like Instagram, maintain control over the images that I post there. I also know that they control the algorithm, which in turn allows people to see or not see my work. That's their control. They are a business. They are there to make money for their stockholders. They are not there to make money for me. I am not paying for the service. Therefore, I am the service. I am something that they can add to the algorithm that will get them more people watching, that will make more money for their shareholders. That interesting little aside I felt as though it needed to be added in there. I know that social media is like that, but the physical artwork that I create is mine. I also can't get away from all those little cuts from different places like websites and PayPal and Patreon. They all take a little bit when I sell my artwork online. And I try to keep those little cuts that they get as small as humanly possible. Yeah, I could have an Etsy shop, but why? So I can give someone else a cut of my business? It's not something I want to do right now. Maybe I'll change my mind someday. Who knows? Side note, I have had an Etsy shop in the past. It did not do spectacularly. I did not like the amount of money that I had to give to Etsy, which caused me to raise my prices, which caused me to make less sales. Less sales meant that I wasn't high up in the algorithm. So for me, it didn't work. I'm just going with that right now. And like I said, who knows? It might change. So what are the consequences to decision number 2? This limits my sales, and everyone knows that less sales mean less money. Selling in so few places contributes to my niche status as an artist as well. I'm at the mercy of Instagram's ever-changing algorithm, which everyone on Instagram knows sucks. I'm at the bottom of one of those wells right now. I am not being seen by anyone. And then they'll change the algorithm and I'll be seen by everyone. It just depends on their whims. But I am, as an artist, maintaining as much control over my personal creative process and the product of that creative process as possible. That control is insanely important to me. In the past, I've been told by family members that I have control issues. And yeah, I do. I don't like being controlled by other people or entities or overlords or businesses or space aliens or sky daddies. You know, who the fuck does like being controlled? For me, I have to remind myself that one of those consequences is taking that control is that I'm not going to be seen as much. And I have to remind myself of that. Decision number 3, I don't do custom work. I've done custom work a couple of times in the past, and I don't have really good experiences. In fact, I had such a bad experience once that it completely traumatized me. There is an exception, the exception of a recent, it's been within about the past year. I think it was around October, November of last year. A small piece that I created for a client. It went really well. I was very interested in how I would construct a piece like that. It was done very quickly. It was done within a week. Everyone was happy with the outcome. But as a rule, I do not take custom work. For those, reasons why I will refer to decision number 1. And remember, I don't like being told what to do creatively. Consequences of decision number 3. But you're leaving money on the table. Yeah, I might be. But I also carry around the trauma of creating custom work that went so badly. The money is not worth the stress and unhappiness of going through that kind of trauma again for me. It just isn't. And in fact, when I'm talking about this right now and I'm thinking about it, my heart is squeezing tight and getting that kind of hard, cold rock feeling. That's trauma. So yeah, not going to do custom work anymore. But maybe this trauma won't be, this time it won't be trauma inducing. Yeah, it might not be. But there's also an equal chance it's going to be just as horrible. Or maybe even worse. I'd rather forward custom work onto other artists who love doing that kind of custom work. And it'll get them business. So, win-win. They get the business, the person gets the custom work, and I can leave my trauma where it is someplace else. So what does this all mean in, the big, my big picture? We talk about the big picture as in like everything outside in society and the culture you live in. I'm only limiting this to my personal big picture, me. I've had the fortune of living outside the United States for a chunk of time. I've never realized just how influenced I was by the culture and society of my home country, or even the specific region I grew up in Indiana. I grew up in until I compared it with an incredibly different cultures and different societal settings, different expectations. Prior to living abroad, I was acutely aware of how pitifully poor I was. I mean, and I was working in a full-time teaching job, and I felt incredibly poor, barely able to keep myself together. At the time, after teaching for 10 years, I was earning $41,000 per year. And any teaching I did beyond that for my district got double taxed. So if I taught during the summer or I taught a studio workshop or something like that, I got bumped into a higher tax bracket and they took more of the money away. There was never enough money for all of my bills, and my car would always get sick right before the tax refund came and would usually eat up most of that with repairs. And part of that is putting off auto repairs until the car is actually starting to fall apart. Welcome to America. While in Finland, I had even less money. I mean, like seriously less money. Not having a car wasn't a big deal. In the United States, a work colleague could not understand why my husband and I only had one car. I worked outside the home. He worked inside the home. Why do we need 2 cars? Didn't get that. Certainly, we needed 2. I lived in a much smaller apartment, took the bus and walked to classes and my appointments and things to do with friends. I bought secondhand clothing. I even bought a lot of secondhand art supplies and sewing things. I bought secondhand household items. But given all of that, I never felt poor in Finland. Everyone takes the bus or bikes, looks for bargains at the Lidl. Everybody shops at Lidl. Everybody. You're there with people who are much more affluent than you. Everybody does. And will love pointing out that I only pay. You'll see someone, you'll compliment on their boots, and they will point out that they only paid €7 at a secondhand place, the Kirpus, that's secondhand in Finland, and they're everywhere because there's no stigma behind it. There's absolutely no stigma. Looked at through the cultural lenses of an American, the decisions I've made regarding my small art making business seem like bad ones. Almost as though I went from, constricting down to move to Finland and then lived on much, much less in Finland and then came back and I'm still living on much, much, much less here. My husband and I are both, I was raised as a Methodist and we both have decided this is more of a John Wesley way of living. So if you make a certain amount of money, you live on a certain part of it and the other part you save or you tithe. And then if it turns out the next week you make more money, you live on that same exact small amount and you save and you tithe. That's kind of what Wesley was all about. But that's me getting off onto a tangent there. These decisions I've made regarding my small art making business do kind of seem, I would think, to some Americans as bad ones. I could make more money if I did custom work or if I made artwork that had a larger, more mass market type appeal. Or maybe if I used Etsy, I could sell lots and lots and lots more work. And then I would be making much more money. And that would be great, right? Having more money would make everything better, right? Or at least that's what the culture of the United States seems to tattoo on the souls of everyone born and raised here. I cannot completely rid myself of being born and raised in this insanely consumer-oriented economy, this capitalist system where making money is the be-all, end-all. That's just how it is. Money, 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 money must make more kinds of money. I can't get rid of it. I just can't. This is why I feel as though I need to periodically remind myself of why I've made the decisions that I've made, because they seem to be antithetical to the American way of life. And for those who are not totally 100% on board with that kind of life, yeah. And I think that in those negative points in my mind where I'm getting really upset that I don't have enough money to buy an art supply, or I really need to buy some new clothes because what I have is wearing out and I can't mend it anymore and I can't make it work anymore. Those things start to kind of get to me and I have to stop and tell myself the reason I made these decisions is because they are for the positive aspects of the consequences of my decisions are the things that help keep me as a person, my identity, my person, everything. There's some people talking outside right now very loudly. Completely intact and integrated and moving forward. I don't want to slide back. I don't want to go back into depressive modes. I want to keep moving forward. And if those decisions that I'm making don't make sense to everybody, then that's fine. But sometimes I need to remind not only others occasionally, but myself a lot of the time, because sometimes it takes me a while before I learn my own lesson. It really is a tightrope to maintain. The reason I made the above decisions is because the money is not the only reason I create my artwork. Money is an extrinsic motivation for my creation of my artwork. And this doesn't really compute to me personally. The accumulation of money simply because I've made a thing doesn't work for me, especially if I don't have an intrinsic drive and connection with the artwork that I am creating. One might say, that dog won't hunt. This seemingly peculiar trait is firmly attached to my psyche for reasons I won't go into here and now. But it's a long, strange tale of shame, manipulation, and anger on many different sides. Each of these 3 decisions have required me to make trade-offs in other parts of my life. That is all part of being poor, as close to as on my own terms as humanly possible. If I want that, then I will have to go without this other thing, or put off a purchase until I've been able to save enough money for it. This isn't a unique situation at all. People, couples, families are all going through this in their own ways. How are we going to put braces on the kid? The car needs new tires. The house needs a new roof. Planning for a wedding. Can we even have a kid? Families are all doing this all over the United States right now. And having money is a necessity. And I kept typing when I was writing this, I kept saying, I kept typing in like necessary evil because, we've all learned money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money. If you're going for that whole biblical thing, is the root of all evil. Baron and I need a place to live. We need to have food to eat and an internet connection for each of our businesses. And for me, there are the tools and materials I need to create my artwork. And when the money gets tight for me, I will forego the new clothes or the trip to Philly, and I'll eat bean burritos 3 meals a day for weeks if I have to. But I will not go without art or art supplies. That is another one of those decisions that I've made that seems antithetical. I mean, I've worked in school districts that decided just to do away with the arts program, performing in visual arts in elementary schools because there wasn't enough money. And it usually is, think about it, the thing that most people will trim from their budgets when things start to become tight are the arts. We'll go out to movies less often. We won't buy those newer, more fashionable clothes. We may have to go to the library instead of getting that new book. We may have to save a bit more before we can get those lessons that you wanted or those art supplies that you needed. It seems like art is right out the first thing that people will get rid of, which to me, it's like, those are the things that make life even better. So, again, it's that flip thing where in the going back to the woman who was like, how can you not have 2 cars when we only had one person who was working outside of the home, is looking at what everyone else has and somehow you should match it. You should have that car or that house or wear the certain style of clothing. And then you'll start trimming off the art and all of that other stuff. And somehow for an artist, it doesn't seem like it works that way. It's like, yeah, I'm wearing dresses that are like 3-4 years old. I'm saving up before I just recently bought my first pair of new tennis shoes in like 4 years. So yeah, So, okay, hippie earth princess, who doesn't love money or wants to live in a world without money. Now what? Well, this post was far more for me than anything else. I needed to make sure that I actually understood and put words to the specific decisions and their consequences for me. So when I start belly aching about not selling any artwork, I can redirect my whiny butt to this post and remind myself of why I do what I do the way that I do it. And who knows, I may change my mind someday and decide that all I want to do is make money. And I'll start making those Duck Dynasty and Minecraft dolls that one guy told me that I should make, because those will make me tons and tons and tons of money. Anything's possible, right? Thank you for listening. And I'll see you again here in an upcoming Sunday, because as we all know, I'm still trying to get a handle on like how I'm doing this. So thanks for listening, and I'll be here again some Sunday.